It's the best fantasy show that you have ever seen in your entire life. I am telling you the players that you must draft, or else I will find your IP address, I will track you down, and I'll probably just give you a quick little tickle. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I've seen the trend of people calling themselves, alter egos and, young. There's an incident here with the young Philly, and there's young whoever, young Jeezy. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of youngs. Okay, maybe I should do that. Should I call myself Young Fantasy? No? We cut this bit out? Cut it out, yeah. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Sign up to FanDuel and get a big return because it is America's #1 sportsbook. Place your first $5 bet and get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. So I want to bang, I want to thumb, I want to do that maybe in the reverse order, leave a comment on the video, listen to the audio, do all of that stuff together. I will do this show every year. I will not like doing this show every year, and I will explain this show every year. And I'll probably explain it multiple times during the show because I know people will watch and they fast forward and they get to a section, they go, what is this? Ah! Right, so this video is titled Must Draft Players. This does not exist. This is not a real thing. There are so many interchangeable parts and pieces in the NBA and in fantasy leagues that you can make decisions at any point to choose different players and all that sort of stuff. I am not ever going into a draft and going, I need this player. And then everyone starts to push him higher and I go and get him. I don't. I just say, well, that's done and we get the next guy. What this is me looking at the way that current rankings are set on both Yahoo and ESPN. And your league might be the sharpest league of all time. Your league might have more tacos than Old El Paso. I don't know. And they go off different orders and different ranks and different lists and ADPs. And I honestly, I can't adjust for that. And I don't care to adjust for that because it's impossible to do. So what we are doing in this show is I am looking at rounds, standard 12-team rounds for points and for category leagues on Yahoo and ESPN, covering everybody off. And I am looking at the rankings on those sites because rankings do tend to influence ADP, usually not the other way around. But there can be wild changes and wild spikes, and the further down the board we go, the further we deviate from a ranking or an ADP, it changes. But I'm looking at guys that have sizable gaps versus what their ranking is, versus what I think the player is, where if I see that guy available in that round, I'll look at it and go, yeah, I might get that guy. I cannot, for category leagues, look at these players and go, well, that makes sense on my team given this. I can't do it. It's impossible to do. So what I want you to use this video for is if you're in a points league or a category league, if you play on Yahoo or if you play on ESPN, what you are doing is just looking at the players that I've got, and they are the guys that I think are just a little bit better, sometimes a lot better, than where they are currently positioned in their particular format on their particular site. And that is just too wordy to put as a heading. So you know what this is? The must draft players in fantasy basketball. I'm not going to do round one because what the hell does that mean? At round one, you take what you're given, yeah? You're in the spot like you take Luka or you take Wemby or Jokic at 1, 2. You take Shea or Luka at 3, 4. Giannis and Davis go 5, 6. That's almost the way it goes in every single draft. You can mix and match a little bit. I'm not going to do the must draft first round player because honestly, you just sort of take what's there. What we're going to do is move on from round 2 onwards. And I'm not going to, for a lot of this, it is hard to look at it and go, well, if I'm picking at 13, a must-draft player is different to a must-draft player at 24. And theoretically, I could do a 7-hour show and say, this is the must-draft player at 13 and at 14 and at 15, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to hold your hands all the way through everything. In fact, even if I did that and went back and did it 2 days later, I'd change my mind because we're flexible. There's differences are small. They're small. And I know a lot about small things. So let's get in and let's take a look at round 2. players that are ranked, and you at the early parts of these rounds, or in this league hypothetical situation, I'm going to look at guys that are pushed towards the back of that round, who I think you should be looking at really any part of the round. And as we get further in, the gap widens as you would expect it to. So if I'm in a category league, this is the order it's going to run when I talk. Category league, Yahoo, points league, Yahoo, category league, ESPN, points league, ESPN. You can see that up on the screen. If I'm in a category league, over on the old Yahoo, Karl-Anthony Towns is currently ranked at 22. Now, he didn't shoot very well in that first game at MSG, but he did what we wanted. He scored, he got volume, he blocked shots, he got rebounds. Karl-Anthony Towns could very easily, incredibly easily be a first-round player. I don't think I'd take him in the first round, but honestly, if you said to me, I'm in a mock draft, and I took Towns at 12, I'd say, yeah, you know what? I get why you would. I get it. He's ranked 22 on Yahoo at the moment, and the numbers from last season, they're good, but they're not going to tell the full story. He could easily block a shot a game. He could easily get 10 rebounds while doing everything else and playing 36 minutes instead of 33. And that, at rank 22, I find it hard to argue with that. Someone will. One of you blokes will argue with it. I know that, and that's okay. One of you Sheilas might. One of you women, chicks, blokes, bastards, whoever. Someone's going to argue with it. I don't know why I'm so hyped up. I am, because I love this show. Jalen Brunson for Yahoo Points League. Now, they are both Knicks, because as everybody knows that I'm a huge Knicks fan. I say that only to confuse you, because there's going to be people that call me a Knicks hater. There's going to be someone that calls me this team hater. I don't like any team. I hate every one of you. Every team, I hate them all. But I do believe that Jalen Brunson at a points rank of 18 has value at any point in round 2 for a Yahoo Points League. And while you could say, well, they've replaced Rounder with Towns, that's true. And I sat here and I've argued many times about Brunson, saying that the numbers that he put up second half of last season with Randall out are a little bit hard to rely upon, because his usage went through the roof. And that was all true. And it all changed, because not only did they lose Randall, but they lost DiVincenzo. They've also lost Mitchell Robinson, so that's just another rotation piece out of there. And Hartenstein's gone. So while initially, when I thought that Randall was going to be there and Dante was going to be there, they would have that situation, that I thought Brunson would come down, but they have no depth. They have no players. That's very thin. So I actually think Brunson can maintain pretty good numbers, and I think for points leagues, you can look at him in the first half of round 2. On ESPN, James Harden is still ranked at 19. He is, in a lot of mocks that I do, he goes at 11 and 12. And I feel like I have driven that up, and I think it will continue to go up. But that's not for all of you. Not every person that is watching this show or listening to this show is drafting against people who watch and listen to the show. You might be watching this show and you go into your home league and maybe 2 people listen to it. Hopefully all of them do, but maybe none of them do. Maybe they go, Josh Lloyd, what is that? What is that guy? Maybe they think that. Right, so I think that the fact that James Harden is ranked 19 for a category league on ESPN, that means you can get him in a lot of different spots in round 2, and I would snaffle it. And then LaMelo Ball is ranked at 27 for ESPN points leagues. And we know why. We know the problem. It's injury. They are going to play, though, at an incredibly fast pace, the old Charlotte Hornets. LaMelo is racking up, I believe, outside of Josh Minott, he might be the number 1 ranked fantasy player so far in the preseason. It is preseason. But we're talking about taking risks, and I think LaMelo with a top 7 upside, top 8 upside at, honestly, that rank of 27, I could have put him in the round 3 zone. I like it. I'm quite enthralled by LaMelo at that spot. I created those graphics for the transition, so I might as well use one. So it was round 2 that we took a look at there. I'm only going through to round 10, because once we get into 11, 12, 13, 14, it becomes the Wild West, it becomes the Flyer Zone, it becomes the Weird Zone. So I'm not going to go into those with huge amounts of detail, but that is round 2, 4 players that I like to pick. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. We want to go to events. We want to go to tickets to playoff events. We want to go to the opening of the NBA regular season. We want to go to NFL games. We can go to comedy events. We can go to theater events. We can go to whatever it is that we're interested in, and Game Time's going to get it for you. They have got the old guys over at Game Time. Game Time Picks, new feature. It sorts through all the tickets to your event, and it just gets the good ones, and it puts them right in front of you. And they're right there, and you go, okay, now this is what I need to focus on. It narrows my targets, which is what we do in fantasy drafts, isn't it? But Game Time takes that to the ticket industry. Are they stealing from fantasy? Who knows? But they have got so many other good options. Flash deals. Bang. Something just happens right now. Events coming up. Prices drop. Game time is approaching. What a deal. Panoramic views from your seat. Obi, he's gone off to open up his phone to get up game time as well. So many different options that they have on the Game Time app. So take that guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Okay, so we looked round 2. That means we head to round 3. So again, we're looking at this based on a standard 12-team league. Round 3 is pick 25 through to pick 26. And on Yahoo, I've been very impressed through preseason. I've been impressed with this guy since before he was drafted, when I had him as the 5th or 6th overall player in his draft class. His name is Alperen Sengun. And I've been impressed all the way through. And I have been even more impressed with what he has done in preseason. I think he is like, off the top of my head, I think he's maybe like 12 of 13 from the line as well in 2 games. So I have got, for Yahoo points leagues and for Yahoo category leagues, I think that Sengun looks to me to be a must draft player. All right? Must draft player. Cool. Does that mean what we think it means? It just means that I really like his value. I think that Sengun is almost a pretty clear top 20 guy in points leagues. I think his category value, obviously, we understand that there might be bad free throws and he might have below average blocks, but we deal with it. We understand how to deal with it. We know that that can work in builds and all that sort of stuff. So this is, again, as all of these picks, it is not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But I love getting into that round 3 zone, and if Sengun is there, I love taking him. I love it. I think there's tremendous value in Sengun, who last season played 32 minutes with 27 usage. I wonder if he does more this season. I don't know. I'm actually less worried now than I was about what are they going to do and how they're going to deploy Adams. I think that he's going to do a ton. I love that the steals are still really high and his free throws have improved. There's a lot here that he's looking very, very strong from the big fella, Alperen Sengun. The ESPN category guys that I'm looking at, or the guy that I'm looking at, is Devin Booker. Because Devin Booker, for some reason, is ranked at number 28. And that is just one that I have to pounce on. Now, I know that the second round goes 25 through to 36, and so maybe Booker's not available to you at the back end of round 3. That's cool. But rank at 28 means that sometimes he will push a bit later. And I'm not really sure why he's in that spot. So yeah, I love that. And of course, on an ESPN points league, for as much as I will tell you, and I will tell you this, that Steph Curry is not as valuable in a points league than he is in a category league. Tell me why he's ranked at 37. Excuse me? 37. Now, I know he's old. He had 31 usage last season. That might go up. But 37 is like, that's bonkers. That doesn't make any sense. So that is when I'm sitting in round 3 ESPN points leagues. Steph's going to be there on the board. And like is it automatic 12, 15 spots of value? Maybe. All I know is it's pretty good. It's a pretty good spot to be in. Let's take a look at round 4. Who's a good option for us? Let's go to Yahoo first. And these 2 guys were picked number 1 and number 2 in their draft class. And both of them had availability issues for different reasons. I really like drafting Zion Williamson this season. Zion has a rank on Yahoo. Remember, Yahoo's rankings also are not format specific. So if you're playing points leagues or category leagues, you will be presented with the same rank. Zion is ranked at 50. This is for categories. I like it. I know that he has been injured in the past, but this is where my approach is different. And I believe my approach is very, very clear. I believe it is very clear. Some will disagree, and some will tell me that I'm hypocritical or I'm contradicting myself. I don't pay massive attention to the fact that they have missed games in previous seasons, unless it is a consistent degenerative lower body joint issue. And the 2 that I am out on are Kawhi and Joel Embiid, because of multiple repeat meniscus injuries in the same knee, which is a huge rate of failure moving forward. Guys like LaMelo, I'm not that worried about sprained ankles. I'm not worried about Zion pinging a hammy in the playoffs after being healthy all season. I'm not that worried about it. I have a little worry about it because obviously they've been injured more than the regular person. But I'm also not that worried about it. So I'll take Zion. I'll take him in round 4 without really any question at all. And Ja Morant missed a lot of time. He was suspended. Then he suffered a shoulder issue with a shoulder surgery. And he has had injuries in the past, knees and ankles and that sort of stuff, but nothing that's required reconstruction or anything along those lines. And for a points league, Ja comes in ranked 43rd because they don't have specific points rankings. His X rank is 43, and he's a very, very comfortable, even like me being cautious with it, top 20 points league player. So when we're sitting in round 4, and Ja Morant's available, and he might not be. Again, this depends on the level of your league. I take him. If I'm on ESPN, we started out the draft process on ESPN. And I say if I'm on ESPN, and I never will be playing on ESPN, so that's probably moot. Fred VanVleet had an ADP in the 90s. He doesn't have an ADP in the 90s anymore because he's just rolling forward. But still, the ranking they put out has Fred VanVleet for category leagues at number 44. Now, of course, he was a top 20 player last season, and I do expect that maybe he plays 1 to 2 fewer minutes. Not a huge amount. There are many other players that I'm way more concerned about minutes drops. Kevin Durant, Donovan Mitchell. Way more concerned about that than I am with VanVleet. He doesn't shoot well as an overall field goal percentage player, but he brings assists and steals and blocks. He's a great free throw guy. And he's just going to be on the court doing stuff. So at 44, I don't see how you go wrong. So in round 4, I love getting Fred. This one here was an area of ESPN, round 4, points leagues, where I looked and went, yeah, there's some, but I'm not like loving one of them. Now, I do like the Bronco Jalen Williams in round 4. He's got a points league rank of 42. He often starts season slow. Well, not often. He's had 2 years and he's done it in both of them. So far, 100% of the time, he starts out slow. But it's not like, I don't think that one's giving me like globs of value. I don't think it's giving me like, well, yeah, he's going to be the 20th best player and we've got him at 42. What an unbelievable steal. I don't think that. So it's one of the ones on ESPN where the value on that is probably narrowest, but I still like him there. Side note, when I'm doing this stuff and when we're talking about this, just because I say that Jalen Williams is here as a must-draft in round 4 or Ja is a must-draft in round 4, that does not, A, mean that he's going to go there necessarily, but also for some of these rounds, there might be 5 different guys that I look in that zone and go, man, there's a million guys that are ranked around this area that I love. So I just want to highlight sort of one name in each different spot. Let's take a look at round 5 now. We're talking from round 5, pick 49 through to pick number 60. And you're going to see this man, and this is, again, one that I have some fear about. But you are going to see DeAndre Ayton's name mentioned a lot on this show because he just seems to be positioned in a spot that it does take into account that there is risk associated with Ayton. And the risk is that he's traded, benched for Klingon, fake injured, snowmobile accident, I'm not sure. He's ranked at 57 on Yahoo. I think that he's a probably 4th round sort of a player. You're in that zone of the draft where big men who shoot free throws just are gone. They disappear and you run into a real problem of like, man, do it means I have to draft Vooch? Like, that's a real problem. So I actually like Ayton there quite a bit. As I hit this across, I like Ayton in that position. He rolled as top 10 for 4 weeks or so at the end of the year with a lot of players out. Don't expect that. And there's definite risk, but I still do like him there. The other name we've got on that spot at number 65, or ranked 65 for Yahoo Points Leagues, is the double royal himself, Julius Randle. Yeah, Randle is now in Minnesota. We haven't seen him in the preseason, but it doesn't appear like he's in any risk of missing out on games. He's ranked 65, and we're talking round 5, which honestly, like, it stretches my bounds a bit because 65, you'll notice, is in round 7. So I actually said, like, I know he's ranked 65, but just get him in round 5. This is a points league. Like, bro might be a top 40 player. And if he's sliding, and he might, I don't know. Like, people think that, no, he's losing minutes. They're going to prioritize Naz Reid, and Randall won't do anything without Edwards there. Like, it's really not a massively different scenario for him. Now, I did drop Randall down moving to the Wolves from New York because I just don't think he's playing the Tom Thibodeau minutes load. But otherwise, I think he's still going to be Julius Randle. He is starting. Like, nothing's changing in that regard. So I like him there. The ESPN Category League one, why are we so down? Not we, them. Why are they so down on old mate Evan Mobley? I don't really understand it. Mobley's good, right? He's ranked 60th for category leagues on ESPN. I know. He had an injury last season, which he'd never had before. He played 31 minutes. He still averaged 16, 9.5, over 3 assists, 1.5 blocks on 58 and 72. That's pretty good. That's not the 60th best player. It's way better than that. So if I'm sitting in round 5, Evan Mobley is available according to those numbers. And I'll snaffle it. I'll snag it. Really nice. I already talked about Fred VanVleet in the category section for ESPN 1 round ago, and for points leagues, he sits even lower at number 59, and that makes sense because he is a worse points league player than category league guy. The problem is we're probably 30 spots off on his actual value by having him at number 59. So, yeah, you can get in there, you can grab him, and you can feel, I think, pretty good about making that move. We're going to come back with round 6 through 10 in a sec, but today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. The NFL season has started. It is rolling, and my team is done, but that's okay, because on FanDuel, you can be watching a game, you can see what's going on, you see a trend, you notice something, and you want to place a bet. So you open up the FanDuel app, and not only can you see what's going on with your eyes, but you can check your phone, you can look at the bets, and you can look at the odds that are there. You can look at the live stats. You can look at the live game-by-game. Well, that's not the right term. The term is play-by-play. You can look at the live play-by-play on there as well and get all of that information that you need to make the most of it. And if you are a new customer, you can go in and chuck in a $5 bet, place that bet, and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So head across to FanDuel, get started. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, so we went through, we did the 5 rounds there. Let's do round 6. That is pick 61 through to pick 72 in a standard 12-man format. I tossed and turned, and then I thought about this one as well, about what to do with Cam Thomas. Because my projections are much better on Thomas than what this ranking suggests. He's got a ranking of 67, which for Yahoo, of course, means both formats. I feel much better about old mate Thomas in a points league than I do in a category league. I think that he should be hitting the top 50 in a points league. He might get there in a category league. Of course, as usual, we have to understand what it means on our team and what are the players we're looking at and all that sort of stuff. But at a rank of 67, which is the middle of round 6, I like getting Cam Thomas. He might average 27 a game. He might average 24, I don't know. 4 assists, good from the line, hit some threes. Yeah, he'll have some bad shooting. Yes, that is true. He won't grab many rebounds. And you have to balance that on your team and what you're looking at that point. But he's going to get so many opportunities. He played just 31 minutes last season. That could easily go up this season. So I think Thomas, again, if you are scrounging and trying to get points, he makes quite a bit of sense in round 6. We've spoken about both of these guys on ESPN already, but Zion's ranked 68th in their category league rankings. Yeah, all right, easy. I will take that every day of the week. And Evan Mobley is pushed even further in points leagues back to 64. So to me, both of those guys in those positions just make so much sense. Makes so much sense. We get now to round 7 and have a look at where some guys might sit as the old must drafts down in that zone. And yeah, I know. And I know some of you will laugh at it. But Jordan Poole, with a rank of 79 on Yahoo, is a must-draft player. Jordan Poole was a top 50 player the final 6 weeks or so of last season. Jordan Poole struggled early on in the year. Jordan Poole played as a off-ball shooting guard, and he is now the on-ball point guard. It's a very big difference. Just bump 1 or 2 assists onto it. Maybe he gets 1 extra free throw attempt. Maybe he gets 1 extra shot. Don't know. I also think he's in somewhat of a better place in terms of being on the team and acceptance of this role. I don't disregard things that have happened in the past, and I know that I, along with others, but I was very high on what Poole would do, tried to transition a lot of the stuff that he did from Golden State over to Washington, and it didn't work. He struggled, obviously. But that doesn't mean that I just avoid him. You will never hear me in my entire fantasy career ever say, nah, we can't do that, man. He burnt me last season. Never do it, because every year is a new thing. It's a new situation. It's a new scenario. And because all of the decisions that I make, all of the projections that I make are based on data and logic, well, if that data and logic still applies, then I will still do it. And that is why I like taking Jordan Poole here. If he just plays 2 extra minutes and gets 1.5 extra assists, we talk 18 and 6 with over a steal on 88 from the line with 2.6 threes. Yeah, it's good. Yes, the Field goals is a problem. Would you want to put Cam Thomas in round 6 and Jordan Poole together? Probably not. Hence some of the drawbacks of this exercise. But that's okay. In points leagues, his teammate, who I would argue at times is a much worse player than Jordan Poole, but in points leagues, Kyle Kuzma, ranked 83rd, no-brainer. Probably top 50 per game. Now, the difference with Kuzma is that I think he's at larger risk of being traded than what Poole is. He's also going to be playing at the 3 instead of the 4 this season. But it doesn't really matter that much when we're talking about Kuzma ranked at 83 for a points league. It's just really easy. Now, these next two on ESPN, it is very easy for us to say nobody plays on ESPN. The fact that, well, I know that some of you will say, why do you want to include it? Well, I'll include it because I know that there's like 30 to 35% of people who watch this that do play on ESPN. I know that people play on ESPN because it exists and it does happen. And I know that there are people who look at rankings and follow them. Jimmy Butler's ranked at 81 on ESPN. Why? I don't know. And this is not even the most egregious ranking they have. But he's at 81. Yeah, he will probably miss some time. Probably will. But even the most skeptical Jimmy Butler person surely cannot believe that he's this bad. I put him here in the round 7 zone because rank 81 is in that area. But if you took Jimmy Butler in round 5, I think you're feeling pretty good about it anyway. And then at the exact same rank, but for their points league rankings, Bradley Beal is at 81. And I know Bradley Beal had some struggles last season. Do we want to hold him back because he had a hamstring that cost him the beginning of the season? Maybe you can punish him for that. But we get into, again, pick 81. What are we losing here for a guy that rolled as top 50 this last 2 to 3 months of the season? It feels like the punishment that they're getting for whatever, and some of them I don't even know why it's there, but that punishment they're getting is definitely way outsized versus the production. And you are, which is exactly what we love to do in fantasy, you are eliminating downside by seeing these guys fall to this position. Again, that's what we love. We love that. What about round 8? Any stupidity that ends in that round? Of course, there's not. There's still some really, really interesting values for us there. We will go to including some of the dumbest stuff you'll ever see on ESPN. But this one, again, people will find this somewhat controversial. On Yahoo, we're in round 8. I actually think Draymond Green's a very good value. Again, this is where the idea of must draft, I will remind you again of the concept and how to interpret it. I am not telling you that in every circumstance you need to pick Draymond Green if you're sitting there in round 8 and he's available. You do not need to do that. In fact, I would advise not doing that. But the Draymond Green, as a category league rank of 94, and we know that in category leagues, some of us will punt points, some of us will punt free throws, some of us will do this. Draymond is a very easy top 70 per game player, even though he doesn't score very much. Very easy. Yet, he's at 94, and like we're snagging 30 spots of value. Maybe he loses his mind again. He's completely irredeemable and irreparable, and he's kicked out of the league for good. Maybe. Maybe he retires because he can't punch people. Maybe. I would suggest that expecting him to be suspended for as long as he was, for 2 years in a row, is probably a very low probability outcome. So if you want to use like EV terms, picking Draymond at this spot, it's all plus EV. If he gets suspended and he's kicked out, whatever. You haven't lost that much, and you actually got value in some of the other areas that you might need it. And with the injury to Trey Murphy and the note that the Pelicans are going to be starting Herb Jones at center, it does not matter who is starting at center. Zion will probably be, but whatever, it does not matter. What is important is that means that CJ is starting. Now, I think it's a terrible decision. I think that CJ is a guy that's been declining for years and years and years and holds this team back significantly. But whatever. It doesn't matter how much I believe that if they're going to go and play him 30-plus minutes straight away. Because he's ranked 95, CJ McCollum, for Yahoo. And in points leagues, there is a lot of value there. And again, we've eliminated miles of downside by taking him there. This one for ESPN, for category leagues, is probably one of the dumbest things I have ever seen in my life. Is that actually, maybe there's another one that's coming up later on that might be as dumb. Why is DeMar DeRozan, who, I grant you, might drop off, but why is he at number 98? You could say he's going to drop off and be 60th. You could say he won't lead the league in minutes, and I 100% agree with that. He had 38 minutes a night last season. You could say that maybe he loses ball handling opportunities to DeRozan, to Fox and to Sabonis. Totally cool. Why is he at 98? I have dropped him down from where he finished last season, and I believe the initial ranks that they had for categories had him at 29. And now he's at 98. And you said that's a stupid rank, Josh. Yeah, I know. It's the point of this. No one's drafting there. I guarantee you, somebody is. In fact, I am going to, as we're recording this, I could have probably pre-prepared this. I'm just going to go and have a look at the recent trends of DeMar DeRozan's ADP and see what's actually been influenced there. I don't know the result. I'll come back to you. Okay, so DeRozan's ADP, which is way higher than this, by the way. It's like at 36, which is, again, what are we doing? It hasn't really changed. His rank has, though. Like, his rank 10 days ago was 96th, and now it's 98th. It's just irresponsible. I don't know why it's there. 36, way too high. Absolutely an ignore for DeRozan. So that's where we get important. I'm telling you that we're in round 8. DeMar DeRozan sits there with a rank of 98. If you're in round 7, if you're in round 6, he's actually pretty good value. That's where you grab him. Having DeMar DeRozan on a must-draft list does not mean that you have to grab him at all costs. Because a rank of 36 is crazy. It's way too high. A rank of 98 is crazy in the opposite direction. It's way too low. I've got Rowan Barrett on here as well for the Points League must-draft for ESPN with a rank of 98. Now, he has hurt his shoulder, so he might miss a little bit of time to begin the season. I'm not sure it's going to be much, but that's okay because he's probably got 30 spots of value sitting there at number 98. He's a much better Points League guy than categories. He improved his field goal percentage out of control last season. He might average 20 points a game again. I really do think there is value in that, even though he is beginning this season with an injury. If we move on to round 9 now, there are still some silly ones. So we'll get in and take a look at which ones of those actually are as silly as they are, because on Yahoo, and this is where he is currently ranked, but in most of the mock drafts that I run, he's going 25 spots earlier. Ivica Zubac is ranked 100th on Yahoo. If you have to get Zubac in pick 60, don't do it. If he sits there at 80, consider it. If he's there at 90, do it. But the ranking says 100. That's where he's positioned. Your leagues will vary. I like him a lot at 100. And as much as I don't like Jalen Green for category leagues, if Jalen Green is sitting there with a rank of 109, which he is, and you're in a Yahoo Points League, I'll take him there every day of the week without really any question whatsoever. I said that I was going to give you another one which looked like a pretty silly ranking spot. Well, I'm going to give you 2 of them here on ESPN. And I have said that I'm a little worried about Jalen Duren's overall upside. How much do they play Stewart? Does that cap Duren from going above 29 minutes? Don't know. But when he's ranked at 113, which he is for category leagues, I actually just don't care. He improved his free throws all the way up to 79. He averaged 14 and 12. The blocks were annoyingly low. And look, maybe he does, like, split minutes, but it doesn't appear that way. I thought there was a small risk of that, but also a risk that Stewart just caps the upside. But I don't care about the upside if I'm drafting him at 113 because the upside's already built in. It's there. I don't need him to hit 34 minutes for that to make sense. And the other one is Jordan Poole on ESPN, who's ranked at 119th, and I don't see a way that goes wrong. You didn't want to do it at 79 on Yahoo. That's okay. To each our own. We're all individual men and women. We can make those choices. But with a points rank of 119 for Jordan Poole, you can't make your own decision on that. I'm making it for you. Just pick him. Lastly, we're going to do round 10. I'm not going to go into those last rounds, as I said, and some of these ones you can get a little bit wild and woolly and wacky at this spot, but there are some ones that do stand out to me. I really do like on Yahoo for category leagues taking Keontae George there. Finding assists and scoring is not an easy thing to do. You could sub that in for Scoot Henderson if you want, and I think both are valid players in that area on Yahoo. Category rank for George at 120. And also, this is another one of those wild points category splits, but Rowan Barrett is 117 on Yahoo, which is maybe 60 spots too low or too high. Low, whatever number. He should be in the 50s. 117 is garbage. Is this the worst ranking that we've seen? Because DeAndre Ayton on ESPN for category leagues, the Snowman, is ranked at 149. Bear in mind that ESPN standard leagues are 10-team leagues with 13-man rosters, meaning they draft 130 players. So they are suggesting that you just don't even bother with DeAndre Ayton. Don't bother with him. Like, he wasn't like a top 10 player for a month last season. Didn't finish the year as 60th best player. Just don't draft. Don't even bother. They took Klingon and he's clearly starting. Ayton's probably just going to be a 10-minute bench player. Maybe I'm just misreading that completely. Maybe Ayton isn't going to play. Maybe he's going to be benched and Klingon's going to take over everything. I don't think that's true. But he's ranked 149th in ESPN category leagues, the Snowman is. He's ranked 123rd in ESPN points leagues. So again, this is a different reading of the situation. If he was playing 20 minutes a night as the Blazers backup, then yeah, those numbers make sense. I just don't think that's true. We will find out. That is an outrageously low number, and we're going to find out at the end of the year which side of that argument ends up being correct. But that does bring us to the end of an eye-poppingly brilliant, insightful, waste of time must-draft episode. It's not waste of time. It just, again, brings together a bunch of names that the rankings look a bit like, what do we mean by that? But everything is different. Be flexible. Be nimble. Be deft with your touch. Be ready to make moves and adjust and build and complement and contrast and just know where guys can and can't go. But if those guys sit in those positions, in those formats in your draft, I'd feel very, very good about making that selection in that position. If you want to make a selection of a thumb, just hit it up on this one. I'll send one in the mail out to you. You can also leave a comment down below and subscribe and you'll never miss an episode, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.